Hi everyone, I'm Sir Ivan. Don't go anywhere because profiles will be coming right up.
Welcome to Profiles. I'm Mickey Burns. Today's guest is Sir Ivan Wilzig, a recording artist, songwriter, and philanthropist. A former banker turned singer, in the early 2000s, Ivan found success with a remake of John Lennon's Imagine, which became a top 40 hit on Billboard's Club Play chart. His follow-up singles, San Francisco and Peace on Earth, did equally as well. After a short break, I'll be back to welcome Sir Ivan to Profiles. Welcome back to Profiles. I'm Mickey Burns. Today's guest, Sir Ivan, is the son of an Auschwitz survivor, Siggi Wilzig, who survived 2 death marches at Auschwitz by pretending to be a master toolmaker. Ivan's dad was liberated by the American Army in 1945 at age 21. In 1947, Siggi came to the U.S. with barely an elementary school education. However, through hard work and a lot of tenacity, he evolved into a Wall Street legend. So join me now as I welcome Sir Ivan to Profiles. Sir Ivan, welcome to our show, Profiles.
Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you again.
Been a while.
For our viewers, you are a former banker turned recording artist and also a noteworthy philanthropist. I did want to mention that. One of your foundations is called, and you have the peace sign on today.
Yes, the Peaceman Foundation.
Peaceman Foundation, which let me let our viewers know what it does. It seeks to benefit victims of hatred and violence, post-traumatic stress disorder victims, and the LGBT community. My question is, what inspired you to form the foundation?
Well, my father, having been an Auschwitz survivor,
Yeah.
and having lost 59 members of my family in the Holocaust,
Wow.
They didn't even have the term PTSD then.
Right.
But my father had nightmares and flashbacks
Yeah.
and occasional depression from having lost the 59 family members. His parents,
How could he not?
3 brothers and a sister, a nephew, nieces, family destroyed.
Sure.
So the horrors he saw, seeing people, men, women, innocent men, women, and children murdered every day for over 2 years.
Unbelievable.
2 years in Auschwitz.
Yes.
Then 2 death marches, daily brutality, torture, and murder. It leaves its impact and it scars you. And so I decided PTSD would be the cause I would champion, because you don't have to go through a genocide and have your whole family killed to suffer from PTSD.
Right.
You could be coming back from Iraq or Afghanistan. You could be a rape victim, a domestic abuse victim.
Right.
Anything traumatizing can affect the nervous system in your life.
Yeah. Let's backtrack just a little bit. You were born and raised Clifton, New Jersey, right over the bridge here.
Born in Newark, New Jersey, but went to Clifton High School, yes.
1980, you earned a law degree from Cardoso Law School?
Correct.
Instead of practicing law, you decided to join your father in running the Trust Company of New Jersey, which is a full-service commercial bank founded in 1896?
That's correct. He took over the bank after he took over the oil company.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a second. But you never practiced law. You decided to join him and follow in his footsteps.
That is correct, yeah. A little bit under duress, because I always wanted to be a singer, a dancer, and an actor.
We'll talk about that. Your
but
heart,
yes,
yeah, your heart.
But yes, I did work for him
did.
for 20 years before making the transition.
And you were quite successful at it, I did want to add.
As a banker?
As a banker.
Oh yeah, my father loved having me in the bank.
Sure he did. Let's talk about your dad, because there's a great new book out which chronicles his life. His name was Siggi B. Wilzig. And the name of the book is Unstoppable, and it was written by Joshua M. Greene. And as you briefly mentioned, your dad was born in Germany. In 1943, he and his family were sent to Auschwitz concentration camp, 1943. When you were growing up as a young man, did your dad discuss a lot of his experiences in Auschwitz with you?
Well, a lot of it, not when I was a small child. Of course, it would have been too horrifying,
I would think,
for a small child to absorb any of that.
Right.
So when I saw the number that was tattooed by the Nazis in his forearm,
What is that, Dad?
And as a child, what is that, Dad? And he said, oh, that's my phone number. I have a bad memory, so I had it put down here so I can remember it. So I said, okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Why would I?
You bought in.
Yeah, I bought it. I fell for it.
At Auschwitz,
Yeah.
I read that your dad survived by pretending to be a master tool maker. Is that accurate?
Yes. It was one of many pretend I'm an expert in this field, the ways that he survived.
And
again
that's
and
how
again.
he avoided those death marches.
Yeah, how he avoided the lineups where you would be sent to the left or sent to the right.
Wow. Now, as you mentioned, sadly, 59 of his relatives and your relatives
Yes, of course.
were murdered during the Holocaust. When did you learn that this was a reality?
Well, I would say approximately at the age of 13.
Oh, man.
He shared the details in the news of what had happened to our family, what had happened to the Jewish people, what had happened to Jewish children, and then, I guess the older we got, the more detailed he got in terms of the actual experiments that were done on people and the different methods they used to torture and kill people.
In 1975, he told an audience honoring him, and this is what he said. He said, "I'm not liberated. I'm in Auschwitz every day." Then he went on to say, "Free men who forget their bitter past do not deserve a bright future." Well,
there were normally two reactions from Holocaust survivors. Either they never talked about it with anyone,
right,
including their wife or husband or their children.
And a lot of that was because of the post-traumatic stress, I would think.
Or they never stopped talking about it. My father was in that category.
He was.
So not only did he never stop talking about it in terms of teaching everyone, Jews, Gentiles, everyone he came into contact with, but he lectured on it at different universities.
I'm sure he did.
He was invited by Elie Wiesel to lecture, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, to lecture at Boston University, where Elie taught a class. He lectured at any opportunity
it was
to
a
lecture
lifelong
about it.
thing with
synagogues, churches, you name it.
He did it. Now, your dad was liberated by the American Army in 1945. He was 21 years old. He then spent the next 2 years assisting Army intelligence in helping track down Nazi guards and Gestapos in Austria and Bavaria. Was he successful in doing so?
Yes, he was, even at a young age, and even after all he went through. He had a knack for, he was very clever and clever like a fox.
Okay.
So in order to catch a fox, you have to be a fox. So he was very good at it, and he helped track down numerous war criminals, the most famous being Goebbels' brother. Goebbels was Hitler's propaganda minister, and his brother was also a big Nazi. And my father was able to track them down.
He did have
see to his arrest. See that he was arrested.
That's good. In 1947, he came to the United States with barely an elementary school education, I read. No contacts, very little money, if any. One of his first jobs in the U.S., I read, was that of a toilet cleaner in sweatshops. Is that true?
Yes. Well, the first dollar he made was shoveling snow in a blizzard.
That was the first dollar?
Yeah, first dollar in America. Then he worked in 2 Brooklyn sweatshops with those intolerable conditions that would all be illegal today.
Yes.
Inhaling toxic fumes, which is no guarantee of it, but later when he died of multiple myeloma, it could have even been from inhaling those toxic fumes in those sweatshops. So he worked in the sweatshops during the day. That was his full-time job. And to make an extra $1.50, he worked cleaning the toilets in one of those sweatshops.
Wow.
That was never his full-time job. He did that to make an extra $1.50 to bring his weekly salary up to $30 a week.
Wow, wow. Well, your dad eventually worked his way up the business world within the Wilshire Oil Company, becoming its president and CEO in 1965. Quite remarkable. What were the keys to his success in business early on?
Well, he had a half a dozen different sales jobs before he started investing his commissions in the stock market.
Right, yeah.
And everything he touched turned to gold. He was a super salesman. He would try selling this, he'd double the sales. Sell a different item, triple the sales, quadruple the sales. Everywhere he went.
He was a salesman.
Yeah, he was a super salesman.
Yeah, yeah.
So eventually, he met someone at an event who was a savvy entrepreneur and investor who wanted to take over, who coincidentally had the same stock as my father, Wilshire Oil Company of Texas.
Right.
And so then this gentleman thought, he's too old to take over the company. But if he had Siggi and my father, a young, aggressive tiger, to lead the fight, he would help back him.
Okay.
So that's how he got his break in the oil business.
Wow.
And then my father went around to everyone and anyone he knew and talked them into buying the stock until they had a position enough to intimidate the board of directors of that company.
Yeah.
And get a seat on the board,
so he was off and running at this point.
Yes, yes. Right? And all of a sudden he learns, he teaches himself the oil business.
Right.
Never took a business class in his life.
I know.
Had nothing more than a grammar school education, came to America with $240 in his pocket.
Incredible.
And now he's on the board of an oil company. The president dies, and the anti-Semitic board decides he's worthy of being the president.
Unbelievable.
He becomes the president, acquires more stock, and then uses that oil company to later take over a bank.
Well, that's what I was going to say. During his tenure at Wilshire, he helped acquire a large interest in the bank, which at the time was the Trust Company of New Jersey. By the late 60s, he was also elected its chairman and president. Over the next 30 years, he grew the bank's assets from 180 million to more than 4 billion. Yeah. In the book, you mentioned it briefly, but the author writes about your dad's frequent nightmares. I guess for him, the Holocaust was a living memory, really.
Yes, but the amazing thing is, he was, as much as the nightmares were terrifying.
Yeah, sure.
He was actually happy that he remembered every single detail of what he went through, instead of blacking it out.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because only by knowing all the details and being plagued by the nightmares, did he have the inspiration to teach the whole world so that it would never happen again to any people, any religion, anywhere in the world, at any time.
Yeah, that's well said, Ivan. The book also delves into your dad's lifelong battle against Holocaust deniers, which must have been very frustrating for him during his life.
Yes, of course. When you have your whole family killed, there's no denying it.
Right.
So,
but yet there were many
to hear
deniers
people
out
come
there.
out and then say it wasn't that bad,
or there wasn't any Holocaust,
or there wasn't a Holocaust, or there was no gas chambers, or maybe they deserved it, and they're making all kinds of excuses for mass murder. And there are no excuses for mass murder.
No, of course not. Interestingly, and I read this in the book, your father was the first Holocaust survivor to address the cadets at West Point. Did you go with him for that?
Yes.
In his address, this is what he said: "You'll need to know what Jews went through in the Holocaust so that you will be vigilant that it never happens again." Was he well received there?
Yes, he received 2 standing ovations and a huge story in the New York Times that covered it.
Yeah.
And it was something to see hundreds of cadets.
And he felt they needed to
hear with tears running down their eyes.
Yeah.
When for the first time they saw piles of hair, piles of glasses, piles of shoes, and piles of corpses.
Yeah.
Even the tough macho
cadets,
soldiers of the military academy could
Yeah.
not help but cry when they saw what had been done to the Jews.
Changing gears a little bit. Although you were successful in banking as your dad, and following in his footsteps, as you said, your heart was always in show business. In fact, you started taking voice lessons at 10 years old. All the while, your dad was discouraging you from pursuing a musical career. Is that true as well?
Yes, that is correct.
And why do you think he was discouraging you from doing so?
Because he wanted to be able to make a living, be able to support a wife and kids, and have a secure life after all he went through. Not singing in Central Park for nickels and dimes, not knowing if I was going to have a roof over my head or 3 square meals.
Sure.
He knew that only 1 in a million make it in
right.
show business, and he didn't want to put me in that risk category.
Right, right.
But ironically,
Yeah.
if I don't disobey him,
Yeah.
continue my pursuit of music,
Yeah.
the book you have in your hand may have never been written.
How is that?
Because the author
Yeah.
contacted me. He's a yoga instructor, besides being an author.
Yeah, yeah.
And making documentaries.
Yeah,
And a friend of his said, you've got to see Sir Ivan's, that's my stage name.
Yeah,
you have to see Sir Ivan's music video. He took the mantra Hare Krishna and turned it into a dance record with a very moving video to go with it, music video.
Yeah.
So the man called me to figure out how and why I did that.
Right.
What Jewish kid takes a Hindu mantra, turns it into a dance record for the nightclubs, discotheques and nightclubs.
Right.
And from that conversation, I found out, well, I said my father was a Holocaust survivor.
Oh.
So all my music is about peace and universal love instead of romantic love.
Yeah.
And so that's why I took, based my whole career, carved a niche for myself of taking all the iconic anti-war ballads from the 60s,
Sure.
starting with John Lennon's Imagine,
Yep.
recreated them for a whole new generation because the world was coming apart and falling apart, and all those fights from the 60s still need to be fought today. Gay rights, women's rights, children's rights, environmental rights, civil rights. Those things are being fought every day.
And you're doing it through your music currently.
Yes.
And your foundation.
The 60s was the one time where a revolution took place.
Right.
The world became enlightened and realized it needed to change in many various positive ways.
Yeah.
And all those battles are still being fought, and I do it through my music.
Yeah, and you've done very well with it. In 2001, you released the remake of John Lennon's Imagine. It sold 10,000 vinyl copies in its first 3 months. Not bad. And became a top 40 hit on Billboard's Club playlist. Your follow-up singles, San Francisco and Peace on Earth, also made the top 10 on Billboard charts. Do you think your dad would have been proud of your success in music?
Well, what happened is he had already had cancer and was home. It's a funny story. It's in the book. And when my father's nurse told him, you should congratulate your son. He made Billboard magazine. Yeah. He's got a record contract with Tommy Boy, and he's in Billboard magazine.
Yeah.
So my father said, what's Billboard? so the nurse had to explain to him, Mr. Wilzig, Billboard magazine is to the music business what the Wall Street Journal is to the banking business.
Right.
So he says, Mazel Tov.
Hey,
how much was your advance? I'll double it for you. I'll double it as a present from me. So he did what my father called like a U-turn in the Lincoln Tunnel.
That's good.
He came around and recognized that I had some talent.
Yes. And you've made a success.
Was recognized by Billboard, the industry leader, and then later again when NHK, the CBS of Japan, the biggest and oldest network there, did a documentary on Imagine, and when they filmed it, they showed that the reason I did Imagine was because my father was in Auschwitz.
Yes.
He saw all that footage of the camps and myself and the family on that documentary, which won Best Documentary of the Year in Japan that year. And he realized that I'm using the music to teach the Holocaust.
Wow.
So he was even
now
more...
he was proud of you.
He was very proud and impressed.
That's a great story. Where did the moniker Sir Ivan come from?
I tell people, such as yourself, that I never asked the Queen of England for permission to build my own castle. So why should I wait for her to knight me? As a joke, when we built the castle, my brother and I went and got us vanity plates for our cars. And I got Sir Ivan for myself and Sir Alan for my brother. We lived in separate towers, so that when it came time to having to pick a stage name for my first record contract with Imagine,
there it was.
I figured, well, it's already on my car. There are no Sir Ivans making music. It's very unique. People will remember it.
Yes.
And that's how I became Sir Ivan.
And it stuck.
Yes,
Stuck.
Yes.
Let's talk about, if you would, your Long Island castle that you call home. which took 18 months to plan, build, and decorate, and was orchestrated by your brother, Alan. Give us a brief tour, if you would.
Well, I had been spending summers out in the Hamptons, starting off with taking share houses before I could afford my own house, and then renting houses, and then buying one house together with my brother, and then we decided it's time for the dream house.
It is that.
I decided it should be a medieval fortress, that I wanted to live in a castle like a king.
You do.
It's the only one in the Hamptons that has that style.
Yes.
And he decided, fine, I'll build you your castle,
Yep.
but it's not going to be cold stone like Count Dracula's castle. The inside is going to be warm and inviting and comfortable.
Yeah, right.
So it's medieval castle fortress on the outside.
Yes.
It's Palace of Versailles on the inside. It's a masterpiece, and he and his ex-wife decorated it and did every detail, and created one of the most beautiful homes in the world.
What are some of the features that make it so special?
Well, it's got the largest gates in the Hamptons. It's got a moat. It's got a drawbridge. It's got dragons, griffins, gargoyles, flaming balls. I mean, it's a medieval masterpiece.
And are you still hosting parties occasionally from time to time?
Yes,
there?
I mean, because of COVID, I cut down on the big ones.
Yes, yes. And you used to have big theme.
On a regular basis. They're all themed. They're all over the top. They're huge Hollywood productions. Everyone has to come in costume.
Yes.
You usually have to make a donation to the Peaceman Foundation, and they have the time of their life. Most people who've been to the castle say it's the most fun day or night they ever had in their lives. Anywhere.
Now, you've certainly learned how to enjoy yourself. You know, where did that stem from?
Well, despite my father's past, what made him so wonderful and charming and a delight to be around was that he was an entertainer. He was the best storyteller.
He was, that's right.
He was a great dancer. He was a great singer. Had a great voice. Yeah. He had a crazy sense of humor.
Right.
And my mother would host wonderful black tie affairs for the bank customers. So I learned how to host and entertain from him.
And you love doing it. And you love doing it.
Oh, more than anything. Do I love hosting parties and entertaining people.
Making other people happy.
Making other people happy, one way, shape, or form. I'm very good at it.
Well, your dad, how would you, Ivan, describe your dad's legacy? And what would you like yours to be?
Well, his was definitely, his legacy is a champion of the Jewish people, and a superhero, really, in the eyes of not just Jews, of every immigrant that comes to America, because and anyone who suffered, because they'll see him as the epitome, the ultimate example of somebody who's been to hell and then made it to the highest realm you could possibly achieve in terms of success and pleasure and happiness and respect.
And he achieved the American dream.
Yeah. So this is a message and a lesson for anyone who suffers, anyone who's got to overcome obstacles, and why you can achieve greatness if you just set your heart and mind to it and think positively about a better, brighter day.
That's well said. I want to say one more time, Sir Ivan, the book is called Unstoppable. It's riveting, and Joshua M. Greene, who wrote it, did a wonderful job. And I also want to, it's been a pleasure sitting down with you today, and want to wish you continued success.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure. Today, Sir Ivan continues to perform and record new music. He has also become a noteworthy philanthropist with his Peaceman Foundation that seeks to benefit the victims of hatred, violence, and post-traumatic stress disorder. As for the book Unstoppable, it chronicles his dad's astonishing journey from Auschwitz survivor and penniless immigrant to a Wall Street legend. Well, that's about all the time we have left on this edition of Profiles. Until next time, I'm Mickey Burns. Thanks for tuning in.